Hello. Uh, a few months ago, I did a video about my Foo Fighters CDs, which I own most of their albums from beginning, except for the two most recent I don't have. Um, and the other one I didn't have was this one, Echo, Silence, Patience, and Grace. But I did subsequently. I actually found it like a week after I'd made the video. You see, this was purchased on the 27th of February. Well, it wasn't purchased on that day. That was the day that it was put into the store. But I would have purchased it around then, I guess the beginning of March. You see, it was $1. What you do see here is that the teeth in the jewel case are completely broken, which is such a pain in the ass. And there's always a bummer. We talked about this in the last video, didn't I? Or one of the most recent videos I talked about that, how I wish they'd used the more strengthened one that they have in the more recent CD case jewel cases. But anyway, um, the disc is in okay condition. Can't actually see any real scratches on it. Sure, there is some. There's some kind of blemishes around here, but nothing major. The reason why I looked at this is because, as you may or may not know, the new Foo Fighters album, what was it? But Here We Are, was released yesterday, and I've been listening to it pretty much constantly, well, not constantly, but quite a lot over the last 24 hours. I've listened to through about 4 or 5 times, and then a few of the songs I've listened to more than that. And I got to say, it's a pretty good album. I'm talking about But Here We Are. So, what I did is I was thinking, is it good, or am I just kind of, is it because I'm listening to it quite a lot, or is it because of the whole first album since Taylor passed away and all the kind of thing that goes along with that? Is that, am I kind of putting my own kind of feeling onto the songs? So I went back, and this is an album I haven't listened to a lot. I bought it, like I said, about 2 or 3 months ago, and I haven't actually put it on and listened to the whole way through in that time because I've just been, sometimes I get a backlog of things to listen to, and I just kind of don't get around to listening to things I mean to. I have heard the the singles of this. Of course, I heard The Pretender. The Pretender is probably one of their biggest songs, but I think I've also heard Long Road to Ruin, and I think I've also heard Come Alive before. So today I listened through to this, and it's not bad. It's also not great. I think it really fits in with that mid-period Foo Fighters sound that I kind of talked a bit about in the previous video where I talked about the Foo Fighters discography that I had. That from about There Is Nothing Left to Lose through One by One, In Your Honor, what's that, about 90, oh no, about 2000, year 2000, was it 99 that? Anyway, from that album through to about 2009, up until Wasting Light. I think Wasting Light was a good album, and I kind of put that separately. Um, and then I guess they kind of continued it with Sonic Highways, Concrete and Gold, which I haven't listened to a lot. And Medicine at Midnight, I'll leave that one separately because I've only listened to the single from that, and I can't really comment on it properly. But through the 2000s period, they made quite a lot of boring music. I feel the Foo Fighters, as in it's not even bad music. I think Dave Grohl is a good enough songwriter that he's not making bad music, but it's just not wasn't interesting. They would tend to have kind of a few, 2 or 3 good songs per album, and then the rest I felt was just very forgettable. And this album kind of follows that tradition. The Pretender is a good single, but it really doesn't fit with the rest of the album. And I read that I actually read a long time ago that they wrote that I think that was the last song they wrote, and that's why it kind of doesn't fit with the album itself. Um, and you hear it in almost every way, like the energy of it. It's a lot more upbeat, heavy, and just the I don't know, the atmosphere of that song, the mood of that song doesn't fit with the rest of them either. Let It Die, the second song, that's okay. That's actually an okay song, not a bad song. Erase, Replace, forgettable, just nothing song. Long Road to Ruin. Now that was a single as well. And this is another thing that I had a problem with them. Is that actually that's a good song. And it's got a funny video if you ever get a chance to see it. Just the same as a lot of other Foo Fighters videos, like dressing up in costumes and with wigs and things. But Dave Grohl was a pretty good comedic actor, I think. And there's one particular part that's quite funny where he comes out of, he's like a TV soap star or something. And he comes out of the studio and there's all these fans screaming to see him. And it's just quite funny, the facials and the actions he's doing when he's meeting the fans. Um, that song is a good song. It's really reminiscent of a 70s rock, kind of not soft rock, but not hard, not like Zeppelin or anything or Black Sabbath, but I mean more like, I don't know. If you listen to it, you might understand what I mean by it. It has like a really 70s feel to it, Long Road to Ruin. It gets to the chorus, and the first, I don't know, how do you call that? The first few parts, lines of the chorus, that kind of it kind of builds up and you think this is going to go somewhere, and then he changes it. There's a chord change or something, and it just completely like takes all the air out of it. And he does that. They do that a lot in their songs, I feel, where the song will start, or there'll be a part in a verse or the chorus where you'll think, oh, what's that? This sounds cool. You know what, this, they're building something up here, or there's like this, it's kind of going to go somewhere, and it goes not even the opposite way. I'm not like saying, well, it's completely unexpected. It's almost like they chose the most boring path possible. Say you get to the end of a bar or a measure or whatever you want to, whatever the musical term is, you know, a few lines, a few, you know, chords making a kind of like, or a riff or whatever, and you think, okay, this could go choice A, B, C, or D. And A would be, you know, take it somewhere better. B would be take it somewhere completely unexpected and almost kind of like discordant or weird. C would be something you can't even imagine, and D would be just boring, like and you just think, okay, well, surely they wouldn't choose that. That's just, you know, like uninspired. And it seems like so many times they choose option D, the boring change, and it kind of ruins the song. It's a bit of a rant there. Come Alive, don't like that. Stranger Things Have Happened, that's an okay song. Cheer Up Boys, nah, boring, forgettable. Summer's End's okay. Ballad of the Beaconsfield Miners, that's like an acoustic, like an picked acoustic guitar kind of. There's no vocals. That's, but you know, it's not really something you would expect on a Foo Fighters album, and it's, you can hear it bit done by other guitarists in a more interesting and better way, but it's not bad. Statues, I like Statues. Statues a good song. The last two, but honestly, forgettable. And Home, that's kind of Dave Grohl with a piano. I read an interview where he said it was the best song he ever wrote. I hard disagree on that one, mate. Again, it's not a bad, none of these songs are bad songs, but they're just nothing that you think, oh, I want to listen to that song again, except for a handful of them. The Pretender, Let It Die, parts of Long Road to Ruin, Statues. That's really it for me. The rest of it, you know, I would kind of just, it wouldn't pull me in to listen to this album a lot again. If I was making a Foo Fighters playlist of my favorite Foo Fighters songs, which I think I've actually done on Spotify, there would be like a whole lot taken from the first two albums. And then from every album after that, it would be like two, maybe three songs per album, you know? And that's really the pattern they followed. Except for, I think, Wasting Light was a bright spot, and that album's a lot stronger and a much better album. And then we come to what I was just talking about, the brand new album that came out yesterday, But Here We Are. I think that's a pretty good album. I think that's their best album since Wasting Light, which isn't a big accomplishment because Sonic Highways and Concrete and Gold, Sonic Highways in particular, was a very forgettable, again, boring album. Concrete and Gold I didn't listen to enough, but I certainly didn't get anything out of it beyond Run. I like Run, the single, but the other songs I heard from it, nah. And then what is it, Medicine at Midnight, or I think what it's called, or yeah, Medicine at Midnight. Which by the way, there's a pharmacy in Newmarket in Auckland called Medicine at Midnight. They're open till midnight. They sell medicine until midnight. I haven't listened to it, so I'll leave that one as separate. But from what just the brief headlines and reviews I glanced over when that came out, it didn't seem to be lighting the world on fire. So this most recent album, it has a different energy in certain songs. The first song I heard off it was the one they released. I think it was Rescued, and I was just like, nah. This just sounds like more of it, more Foo Fighters, exactly the same. And I was kind of like disappointed. I was like, geez, can't you just try something different? But if all you've heard is that first song, Rescued, I'd really recommend listening to the rest of the album, because there are a few good songs on it. Some songs I'd put up there with some of their best ones. But Here We Are, the title track song, I think it's song 4. I really like that song. The one he does with his daughter, he does like his daughter Violet. I know that she did a performance with him sometime a couple of years ago, so I know she's obviously interested in singing. It's called Show Me How. That's probably the song I like the most, because it just has this different feeling. I like the guitar, I like the drums of that song, I like their voices, the way that the female and the male sort of voice interplay together. Teacher, the song Teacher, the second to last song. It's a 10-minute song, so you could kind of broke into different parts. But the first part of that, again, really different, has like this very different mood and feeling than the rest of anything they've done over the last 20 years. And maybe that's just what I've been wanting out of Foo Fighters. A band that I loved so much when they were first around, their first 2 albums, first album in particular. It feels like they just fell into this rut of repeating the same thing again and again, producing good songs. Not saying they're only writing shit, but this there's something that feels very different about it. There's been a lot. I've seen kind of articles written about how it's very sad in the lyrics. He's obviously talking about Taylor, and apparently his mother also passed away last year. Which, geez, for his bandmate and best friend and mum to go in the same year, that's pretty tough, no matter who you are. So obviously the lyrics of the album are heavily affected by that. There's another song, I think it's the second one, Under You, where obviously he's talking about someone who he misses. But yeah, again, those first 2 songs, Rescued and Under You, I think are the 2 worst songs on the album. And again, when I'm saying worst, I don't mean they're bad songs. They're serviceable pop rock songs. But just they go straight back to that Foo Fighters sound of the last 20 years that I just really hope and wish they'd get away from. Whereas things like The Glass, Show Me How, The Teacher, they just sound different and new and fresh with a different kind of energy. And so, yeah, it's weird, because there's so many hundreds, thousands of bands out there and musical projects and artists who are just producing amazing music. It's shit that blows my mind. And with Spotify, it's just like it's I've said before, it's almost overwhelming, because it's just given to you. You'll get recommended something. You'll go on Spotify one day. I'll say, oh, here's a recommended new album for you, and someone you've never even heard of before, and you look at their the artist page, and you'll see they get like less than 1,000 listens per month. So it's not like even anyone remotely famous, and they're making music that's just amazing. And then, but I feel this obligation to go back to these classic bands that were such a part of my youth to kind of see where they're at, because it's almost like I want them to do well. I want them to be making great music, and but it's, it's not as though like why in this day and age. I guess my point is that it's not as though there's a dearth of music to choose from, and to be inspired by, and to make you feel what it excuse me, whatever it is you want to feel. And you don't have to rely on the mainstream acts and artists that have been around for 30 plus years in Dave Grohl's case. But yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know. And then I guess you feel invested in the story. Like, again, like I've listened to Foo Fighters since 1995. I bought their first album. I bought most of their albums second. I own most of their albums secondhand, but I bought them new in my youth. I think the first four I bought all of. I've seen them live. I can't remember how many times I've seen them live in concert. And I was as saddened as anyone when Taylor Hawkins passed away. And so you kind of have this like personal investment. It's like part of your life, because it's like a vine or a root that kind of winds its way through your life. They've been with me since I was a teenager, and so like I said, you feel this kind of like weird obligation. And I know not everyone does. I think most people don't. Most people kind of just think, I think about my brother, one of my older brothers, because he kind of introduced me to a lot of music. He was into grunge, and he's like a couple of years older than me, and like, but I think he wouldn't have listened to any kind of that, whatever, Soundgarden or whatever, or the bands that he introduced me to when I was young. He wouldn't have listened to them in like 20 years plus. He wouldn't. He probably wouldn't even know Chris Cornell is dead, or that certainly wouldn't know that Taylor Hawkins is dead. It's because like for some people that's music when they're young, and they move on, and it's just like whatever other hobbies you had when you were young, collecting comic books or playing soccer or rugby, or whatever it is you do. Anyway, so yeah, I'd say that this is a kind of a 6 out of 10 album, 6.5 out of 10 album. That was kind of what they were doing a lot. But the most recent one, I need to listen to it more and give it more time. But just on this first 24 hours of listening through it a few times, I'd give it a lot higher than their last however many releases. And I hope it kind of, gives them, I don't know what you want to call it, gives them not the confidence or anything stupid like that. They don't really need confidence, but gives them the inspiration to kind of try to move in a different direction, or bring new energy to their music. Dave Grohl's been involved with so many great projects. The drummer in Nirvana, one of the greatest bands of all time, made those first few Foo Fighters records. The first one in particular, which for me is amazing. Drummed on Songs of the Deaf, brilliant album. Drummed on a lot of other albums that I considered to be great. With Teeth by Nine Inch Nails. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling here, aren't I? And I kind of talked about another album that isn't this album, but nonetheless, they're connected, aren't they? All right, thanks for watching.